Hello, and welcome to the Center for Mental Health Advocacy, Research and Treatment Services, CM Hearts. We appreciate you choosing us to support you in your mental health journey. In this video, we'll be discussing anxiety and depression. So, occasional anxiety and sadness are a part of regular life, but they become a concern when the stress experienced is disproportionate to the stressor in question, or when the distress lasts longer than appropriate. You are said to have an anxiety disorder when the feelings you experience are intense, excessive, and when you struggle with persistent worry or fear about everyday situations. These feelings of anxiety and panic can interfere with daily activities and are often difficult to control and very out of proportion to the actual danger. So, anxiety disorders can impact all areas of our life. It can disrupt relationships, work performance, physical health, and even everyday functioning by causing persistent worry, fear, and emotional distress. Depression, on the other hand, is just more than just feeling sad. It is a persistent condition that affects emotions, thoughts, and our daily life on a whole. It can cause sadness, frustration, loss of interest in our day to day activities, sleep disturbances, and low energies for weeks or even longer. Untreated depression can lead to severe negative thoughts of hopelessness, helplessness, and worthlessness, and sometimes can even lead to suicidal ideation. So, our brain is actually a very complex organ, and although it might just seem like a mass of tissue, there are many different areas of our brain, and then they control different functions in our body and our mind. So, let's imagine our brain as an electric circuit. Different parts are connected by nerve cells or neurons, and we can imagine them like wires. So these nerve cells are separated by small gaps which are known as synapses. So when the brain actually wants to pass a message along, there are neurons which are released. These are basically brain chemicals, and they're called as neurotransmitters. Now these neurotransmitters are released in the synaptic cleft. These neurotransmitters are then picked up by the next neuron, and this continues the circuit. So, when there's an imbalance in these neurotransmitters, the function and their interaction with neurons is disrupted. So, it actually affects how we think, feel, and eventually behave. This imbalance can contribute to symptoms of anxiety and depression. So, when it comes to these disorders, there are three primary neurotransmitters, which are serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. Research shows that these conditions are linked to dysfunction in key brain regions such as our hippocampus, amygdala, and also our prefrontal cortex. These are all influenced by our neurotransmitters. So, when these chemical messengers are not functioning properly, our perceptions of the experiences that we have in our day to day life also change. And let's see how that happens. So, when we talk about how our neurotransmitters affect our perception, we can actually cite it with an example. So, let's say I hear a friend giggling with someone else, and I perceive it and attach meaning to it, thinking like they must be talking about me. Now, this thought may lead to a belief like people don't like me. That belief is then communicated to my brain as an experience, which is eventually stored in my memory. Over time, the actual event, which is what I saw or what I heard, that fades. But the memory and the story that I've created around it remains. So I forget the fact about I just saw two of my friends giggling. However, what I remember is that, oh, people don't like me or they must be talking about me. So these stories they shape how we view ourselves, others, and our world around us. It forms our self image, and if my self image becomes negative, I begin to interpret my experiences in a specific lens. So, this can shape my attitudes, my beliefs, and my expectations. A negative self image may lead to feelings of helplessness. It can make challenging situations feel insurmountable. And when these thought patterns they dominate my thinking, it can lead to predominantly sad thoughts, and this can lead to depressive symptoms. Now, what are these depressive symptoms? They are persistent sadness or emptiness or anxiety, frustration, irritability. There is fatigue and low energy. There might be sleep or appetite changes. You might eat or sleep more than usual or even lesser. There might be a loss of interest in sexual activities. There's difficulty in concentrating. There are feelings of worthlessness or guilt. And then there might be thoughts of self harm or suicide. So, depressive cognition or a depressive thinking pattern can lead to a loss of pleasure, interest, or enthusiasm. So, things that you previously enjoyed doing or hobbies that you previously enjoyed engaging in, you don't find the interest in doing those anymore. Also, there might be withdrawn behavior, which can lead to feelings of loneliness. Like, I might not attend social events that I previously used to enjoy attending. There might be persistent negative thinking, excessive worrying, and lowered expectations. And then there might be a constant sad or irritable mood. And in some severe cases, even thoughts of ending one's life can happen. There are also predominantly anxious thoughts which lead to symptoms of an anxiety disorder. So, these symptoms can be feeling nervous or restless. There is a sense of impending danger or doom. There is increased heart rate, breathing, uh, there is hyperventilation, there is sweating, there's trembling, there is a feeling of fatigue or weakness, there's trouble concentrating or thinking about anything other than the present worry. There might be sleep related issues or gastrointestinal problems. So, these anxious thinking patterns can also have certain cognitive symptoms, which is like there might be difficulty in controlling your worry. There might be an urge to avoid things that trigger anxiety. For example, I might avoid going to certain situations or events where I feel more anxious or where I might feel triggered. There might be an increased insecurity about my self image. There might be heightened sensitivity, overall pessimism, excessive concern, and then worrying about small things. Now, let's look at what we can do for treatment. So, when we look at our neurotransmitters in this process, we can imagine our neurotransmitters as being stored in buckets within our brains. So, we function best when these levels are maintained within a particular range. But, however, if the rate of the production or signaling of these neurotransmitters is disrupted, it leads to an imbalance. So, normally throughout the day, our neurotransmitter levels fluctuate. So, we might feel happy and fresh at certain times and more anxious or tired at certain times of the day. But if these levels drop too far, much below the normal range, and they remain imbalanced for a while, the brain's alarm system is triggered. And in response, we try to correct this by eating well, sleeping properly, and socializing. But however, if this imbalance persists for a long period of time and the distress continues, we really have to make significant changes to restore balance. And then, to restore this balance, medication can play a crucial role. So, medications, what they do is try to correct the leaks in these neurotransmitter buckets. So, they try to maintain their levels and they stabilize brain function. So, if someone stops medication suddenly after feeling better, neurotransmitter levels can drop again, and this can lead to reoccurrence of our symptoms. But in addition to taking our medication regularly, there are certain things that we definitely need to do in order to have a holistic approach to our treatment, which is our long-term mental well-being. It actually requires attention to our nutrition, our sleep, our exercise patterns, our thoughts, our behaviors, and our overall lifestyles. So we need to eat good, sleep well, exercise regularly, be in a happy and healthy environment, and make sure we engage in behaviors and activities that give us happiness and joy. So some individuals, they may need guidance in modifying their thought patterns, since these thought patterns were the ones that actually contributed to their current struggles. So the best option over here is to seek therapy. Others may require behavioral activation, such as getting back to the activities that you once enjoyed doing. For example, if you enjoyed dancing and because you started facing certain symptoms of anxiety or depression, which made you stop, our goal is to eventually get back to dancing as soon as possible. A combination of lifestyle changes, medication, and all of these things together can improve our mental health significantly. So, if someone experiences an episode of anxiety or depression for the first time and takes medication for a year while remaining stable and symptom free, they might never need medication again. However, if a second episode occurs, treatment may need to continue for 3 years to prevent relapse. A third episode may indicate a need for 5 years or even lifelong use of medication. This is because reoccurring episodes can alter our neural circuits and synapses, potentially causing permanent damage to our nerve cells. In severe cases, repeated episodes of untreated depression and anxiety can increase a risk of cognitive decline and dementia. That's why medication, when necessary, can be a better alternative to leaving these conditions untreated and exposing oneself to further risks. Taking care of our mental health is a long term commitment, and treatment, whether through therapy or through lifestyle changes or medication, should be approached with a goal or of sustained well being. So, if you or someone you know is struggling, seeking professional help can make all the difference. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions or if you want to reach out to us, please contact at the details mentioned on the slide.